one may watch you, and Billy, when I watch you, I'm like, this guy is boom. Okay, your level of certainty in you, you're very confident in the answers you're given, right? And there are certain people that can communicate that way, that they have the level of confidence, and then one can go do the research and due diligence and say, well, he's full of it, or he's right. Well, I had no clue he's right about all this other stuff. But there's generally two schools of thought. Okay, one is people who believe the establishment is hiding information from them. Mm-hmm. They believe the establishment doesn't want them to know everything because they think it's not good for them, okay? God forbid if you average human beings, you can't handle this kind of information because you're not at the level of intellectual, knowledge that we have, okay? There's a big community. You can call them anti-establishment. You can call them folks that are curious. You can call them, whatever you want to call them. Then the other side is folks who are part of the $200,000 to $300,000 community. Mm-hmm. They went to the right schools, they paid for a certificate, they follow the rules, and they go to school. And to them, they're the people they look up to are professors with fancy degrees. And if they can't figure this out, who are you? Right. Because I asked a couple people about you, and I'm like, listen, this guy, the way he talks, it's very crystal. Yeah. Background. I think you took you went to Harvard for a specific course, if I'm not mistaken. He did something with MIT. Yeah. What background do you have for one to say, no, man, this guy's got a lot of credibility to speak on these topics? What would you say to that?
My biggest background is my passport stamps. That's number one. I mean, traveling around the world, dozens of times to visit with ancient indigenous wisdom keepers, homegrown archaeologists, homegrown guides, going out in the field. It's videos of me at all these ancient sites, me, myself, which is very rare, on my own funding, my own money, no loans, no backers, no sponsors, spending and risking it all to get out there and find out for myself in person, do my own research and put together the pieces of the puzzle. The second thing, obviously just for, I'm an author and, I've authored now 4 books. Epic of Humanity became #1 in encyclopedias at one point on Amazon. And also #1 in Mesopotamian history, #1 in Assyrian history. So there's some credibility. #1 in ancient history at one point. I don't know what it is now, but I bet it's still in the top 10 in all 3 of those categories. So somebody thinks I'm an expert out there. As far as MIT, I took classes to get certified in applied neuroscience, which I did. And then I took classes at Harvard to get a certificate in ancient civilizations. But I put the work in, I put the time in. And like I said, my biggest credibility is my passport. A lot of people talk a lot of stuff, but they don't have any passport stamps.
So passport stamps, meaning you went there, you saw it, you witnessed it, and that is where. Okay, so when you're reading material on this, what is your method of research? What are you reading? What are some things you attack to research a topic like this? Specifically, how wide of a range of topics you study?
Right. Well, if I'm going to go into an ancient civilization, specifically trying to tie things in through the Sumerian culture, because the Sumerian culture has a lot of information and data. Sumerians and also the Egyptians, the pre-dynastic Egyptians, but also the dynastic Egyptians have a lot of information. But when you get into the Sumerian cuneiform tablets and the Sumerian cylinder scrolls, you get access to a lot of information. So I go to the UCLA CDLI online cuneiform digital library. Okay, so say that fast 10 times. So you go in there, you can take actual stones off the virtual shelf, drop them into the translator, and you can then read the translations for yourself. You don't got to rely on this guy, that guy, and all these other people that translated the tablets. You can get the translations yourself, and then you can begin to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, what's interesting is these stone tablets have been translated, and if some of them have been created in Assyrian, some have been created in Babylonian. You can see over different periods of time, but you can see the similarities between the two stories. And then you can also then make the connection between those Assyrian and Babylonian texts with biblical text, also with the Torah, right? The Old Testament of the Bible, the Quran. So all of a sudden you're seeing that the Quran, the Bible were written much newer, at a much newer time period than these ancient tablets. Why are they saying the same identical things as the ancient tablets? That's the first big question mark you have to ask yourself. So now you have to go back and back convert these languages, Aramaic, Hebrew, and everything else, and you got to begin to look at the origin of these sources for these books, and you realize 90% of it's coming out of ancient tablets that existed for thousands of years, well documented. No need to look that up or Google it because it's an absolute known fact. These tablets are thousands of years old, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 years old, and they're sitting in the British Museum. But like, for example, the Epic of Gilgamesh is giving you the full story of Noah's Ark. And you're even given the shape of the ship he built, not the ship dimensions in the Bible. The original dimensions of the boat is a circle, right? It's a disc that he built, not a gigantic boat. The story in the Bible is a little off, but the generalization of the story is coming directly from these ancient tablets. And that's just one example of dozens. And you begin to say, oh man, what happened was people were copying from the tablets onto parchment papers, right? Copying and turning it into what we call scriptures, putting it in these vases inside of these caves where they were studying stuff and trying to hand it down from generation to generation. Over time, people came into these caves, found all these different vases in different areas throughout the region, put those things together and made it into canonized books that we call religious texts.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.